because we were making some last-minute changes. We're in the midst of a vitamin mineral study at ASU, and some of the results we had were very surprising, and I wanted to verify them before I put them into print. There'll be a lot more detail on that tomorrow. If you do want some more information, though, there's my website if you want it, and in a week or two, all the proceedings, including my notes from the presentation, will be on the DAN website along with webcasting. As John was saying, that teamwork is very important to understand nutrients. And if we think about what are the major nutrients that a body must have to function, you must have vitamins, you must have minerals, you must have amino acids, which come from protein, you must have essential fatty acids, and especially for kids with autism, as we'll talk about, sulfate also is quite important. And these are a critical team. If you are missing, as John points out, just one ingredient, if you're just missing iron, then you're going to be suffering from anemia, and that's a leading cause of mental retardation. So lack of any one of those is a major issue. So just to give you a quick overview, we did the first study of a vitamin mineral supplement, a multivitamin mineral supplement for kids with autism. It was a 3-month study, double-blind, placebo-controlled. It was a small study, just 20 kids. But the results were substantial enough to show that we did see an improvement in sleep, an improvement in gut disorders, and also a number of other areas improved, although not as much. They weren't statistically significant with this level of results. But it was, again, the first study to show that a multivitamin, multi-mineral supplement is helpful to children with autism in reducing some of their disorders. This is a detailed recommendation list from Dr. Tapan Aja and myself with input from some other people. Again, this will be available online in a couple weeks, but the bottom line is that in evaluating a vitamin mineral supplement, and there are quite a few good ones out there, you want ones that have a balance of all of the key vitamins, all of the key minerals. Many of them do not include enough calcium. You need to watch carefully for that because the amount of calcium you need is so much larger than the amount of other vitamins and minerals. And so that's just a quick overview of, again, to point out there are many different vitamins and minerals. We really do need more detailed testing. This is just our estimate of what, on average, many children with autism might need. There are a number of good multivitamin mineral supplements out there.
Just get this out of your way.
Sure. And these are just a list of a few of the ones. It's by no means a complete list, but Kirkman Super Nuthera was the first high-dose vitamin B6 and magnesium supplement for autism. Contains many other vitamins and minerals. Kirkman Spectrum Complete is very similar to what we used for our study. Thera Response is very similar to what we, is also a good one to consider. Brainchild Spectrum Support is actually the one we used for our study. D-Plex, again, a good broad-spectrum multivitamin mineral supplement, and a new liquid formulation, Awaken Nutrition. I think all of those are good products. For most of them, however, you do need to add calcium to them. You'll notice also that most of them, one of the differences they have with most of the multivitamin mineral supplements out there is, first of all, they don't have copper because there's been some concern about children with autism perhaps having high levels of copper. Also, generally the levels of many of the B vitamins C are quite high, whereas the ones we're concerned about, vitamins A, D, and E, those are fat soluble and you need to be cautious about giving too much of those. Those are present at reasonable levels. John mentioned the importance of vitamin B6 and magnesium. I'd just like to point out that this is one of the two most well-researched treatments for autism, with over 20 studies on vitamin B6 at very high doses with magnesium for autism is more well studied than any psychiatric medication, except for Risperdal, which has been studied almost as much. Bernie Rimland recommends a very high dose vitamin B6, 8 milligrams per pound, with a high amount of magnesium, 3 to 4 milligrams per pound. However, as I think you heard Jerry say, many physicians find kids with autism often need much less. But there are many studies at these very, very high doses. To put this in perspective, an RDA level is about 1 for vitamin B6. And we're talking about dosages here of about 500. So 500 times the RDA. That is a very high dosage, and yet study after study has consistently showed that that level is enough to help about half of children and adults with autism when given with B6. There are only 2 negative studies, one with very few subjects, so it couldn't possibly be significant, and the other one, curiously enough, used only about half the dose, and they did not find a benefit. So it was only at those very high dosages that the research studies have found a benefit. There was also one dosing study by Tapanaja that showed you need to get up to at least 4 or 5 milligrams per pound of B6 to begin seeing benefits. There's a small chance of adverse effects, but that seems to be a very modest chance, very rare, and is completely recoverable from, so far as we know, when supplementation is stopped. So overall, this seems to be exceptionally safe compared to many other types of treatments out there. Moving on to amino acids, we heard quite a discussion about digestion and problems in digestion. Basically, protein that you eat in your body, that you eat and consume, protein is a very long molecule, and your whole emphasis of your body's digestive process is to break that large protein molecule into small individual amino acids. Only as small individual amino acids can that be absorbed and used as building blocks for your body. Now, it's widely believed in this country that everyone in the U.S. consumes plenty of protein. In fact, probably too much in many cases. And so lack of protein is very rare in this country, but in other parts of the world, like in Africa, you'll see little children with distended bellies from lack of protein. And it seems that in many children with autism, they have a lack of protein not because of lack of consumption, although sometimes that's an issue. They don't like chewing the protein. But more commonly, it's because their bodies don't digest it well. Especially gluten and casein are especially hard for anyone to digest, and they take a very long time for a body to digest if all of the digestive enzymes are working well. There have been some research, I'll talk more about this tomorrow when we get into the hard numbers. Taurine, lysine, and other amino acids are often low in autism. Dr. Pangborn has pointed that out, that when you do urine measurements, they often seem to be high, that these bodies seem to be wasting those amino acids in the urine, resulting in a low level in the body. It's very easy to measure those levels of amino acids using a 24-hour urine analysis. You need to be careful how you interpret it, or just using a fasting blood analysis. And then it can be easily treated. You could consider use of a customized supplement available for maybe $70 a month from a number of compounding pharmacies, or there are some broad spectrum complete products out there. But you need to be cautious that if you do use a product, make sure it's a free-form amino acid, meaning the amino acids are present as individual amino acids, not as some soy protein mix that may have the amino acids in there, but they're all bound to a long protein molecule, may not be very useful to. Of course, the other alternative is to use digestive enzymes to help you digest the protein that you're consuming anyways. There was a very interesting study by a colleague of mine, Tapanaja, and this is his measurements of pre- and post levels of essential fatty acids in children with autism. And 2 of the major ones we're most interested in, EPA and DHA, are omega-3s. They're very important for body function. The blue lines, the blue histograms show that children with autism initially, at the start of the study, had low levels. And this is a large study of 92 children with autism compared to 42 age-matched controls. And so they had only about 60% of EPA, 60% of DHA. Those are very important for many functions in your body. They're very prevalent in your brain. They affect neurotransmitter reuptake. Every single cell of your body, the membrane of every cell, has EPA and DHA play critical roles in. So those are very important. And he found that initially those levels were quite low. After treating them for 9 months with a combination of fish oil and borage oil, he found that those levels could be significantly raised. So 1 is the level of the typical children. It's been normalized, and he raised them quite a bit above that. You might wonder, why would you raise them above that of a typical child? And the reason is that if you attend any college nutrition course, they will tell you that 80% or more of the U.S. population is sadly deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. 80%. Most of you in this room are not consuming enough omega-3 fatty acids. And therefore, it's important not to merely reach the average level, but probably to get well above that in order to make sure you're at a safe level. Also, arachidonic acid, which can cause inflammation and is of concern. That was initially high in children with autism, and by supplementing them with that, I won't go through the details of the mechanism, but basically there's a competing mechanism which drives down the level of arachidonic acid to a below normal range, which is a good thing for reducing inflammation. And so that, I think, is a very compelling point, but I want to emphasize with these fatty acids that Dr. Adja in his study found that after 6 months of treatment, there was almost no benefit. In our group, we did a 2-month treatment with fatty acids, double-blind, placebo-controlled. We found a very tiny benefit after 2 months. After 6 months, in their study, they found very little benefit. It was only when they went up to 9 months to 11 months they found a major benefit. And what was the major benefit? The largest benefit was 80% reduction in gut problems. That it's been well documented that fatty acids are necessary for gut function, and that there have been other gut issues like Crohn's disease which have been treated with fatty acids for a year time frame and shown to be substantial reduction, and also a number of studies showing a correlation. So I think that in understanding what is at least one of the reasons kids with autism have many gut problems, really the underlying reason, in my opinion, is a lack of essential fatty acids. And if you restore those, that will help you restore long-term gut health. So those are the major points I wanted to emphasize, that just to lay the groundwork for you so everyone understands the major nutrients, just going back to those, are vitamins and minerals, the amino acids and fatty acids. I just want to emphasize, again, 80% of the population is not getting enough omega-3s. That amino acid deficiency is rare in the US, but seems to be fairly common in probably about half of kids with autism, based on some data I'll show you tomorrow. Vitamin and mineral deficiency, pick iron for example. 40% of women do not have enough iron. 40% of young infants do not have enough iron. It's the leading cause of mental retardation in the US. So a lack of just one vitamin or one mineral is a huge problem. That's why these nutrients, as John was saying, you really need to think about as a team. You need to consider all of them. You really need to have a comprehensive approach. If you're getting all of them except iron, well, you still have anemia, folks. It's pretty serious. So I hope, seem to have missed the sulfate data. All right, not sure where that went. Okay, I forgot to mention briefly the sulfate data, and I'll just highlight 2 things from it. There was a study by Rosemary Waring in England that many children with autism excrete about twice the amount of sulfate in their urine. They're wasting sulfate, and a result of that, they have unusually low levels in their blood. That has been verified by measurements by Tapan Adja. And also, he did a very interesting study in comparing a wide range of different sulfate sources, glutathione, methionine, and others. And he found that the 2 best ways by far to normalize sulfate levels were, 1, giving an Epsom salt bath, a couple cups of Epsom salts into a hot water bath, keeping a child in there for about 20 minutes. And that seemed to be one good way to increase plasma sulfate levels based on his measurements. And the other way that worked even better was using MSM, a fairly common nutritional supplement available from a variety of the vendors out there. That worked even better. But again, you need to be a little cautious with that and start slowly. Some children don't tolerate that well. But those were 2 of the easy ways to normalize plasma sulfate levels. It's a test that's very rarely done, but believe me, that's one of the core problems for many children with autism is a lack of sulfate, and it's not available in most nutritional supplements. If you really need to use either an Epsom salt bath or MSM, or perhaps one of the other sources, but they seem to have much less benefit. All right, that's all. Let me turn it over to Jerry.